the world of iRacing, there are many different types of leagues, but this is a special one. 60-plus racing adventures for drivers 60 years of age or older. That makes it very unique in the world of iRacing League racing. And today, we have the season finale of the Super Formula League of 60-plus racing adventures. Where else but the beautiful circuit Spa-Francorchamps. David Haynes with Justin Prince to bring you live coverage here on RaceSpotTV. It's a great long-running league, long partnership with RaceSpotTV, and this is a great track, Justin.
A beautiful track to go racing, to say the very least. Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps with plenty of opportunities to make passes and a lot of drafting opportunities. The run up from the source going to be one of the main diving opportunities. You have that opportunity to lick home as well, where many of these drivers will go side by side with a quick right before you go left. All while many of these drivers look to see who's braving Blanchimont before you go along towards that bus stop to the front straightaway. Plenty of chances to battle around the racetrack.
Let's never forget Eau Rouge Raidillon as well. This is how the season's played out. All began at Suzuka. Suzuka on March 19th. We were also live with them at the Hockenheim ring 6 weeks ago, and this, the finale here at Spa. As far as the championship is concerned, let's not sugarcoat it. It's all wrapped up for John Payne, but can he put a bow on it?
Yeah, it was already talked about that. He's basically got himself a clinch with this championship with some of the drivers coming into today. He's been looking very consistent, and John Payne's been one of the main staples when it comes to the series, you can say here, David, especially when it comes to overall ability to drive an open-wheel machinery. Now, for everyone else, it's the matter of how will they line up in the championship standings by the end of the night? Well, there's a lot that can happen over the course of two races, over the course of about 12 laps or 30 minutes.
Yes, exactly. So we're heading towards the qualifying session for the first of two races tonight. Spa is one of the circuits on iRacing that's recently had a graphical update, and you can tell from the curbs, the trees, the new grandstands, etc. Also had a little bit of a rescan as well to go along with it. So in this practice session, just before they get into qualifying, John Payne is on top. No surprise there. Russ Addy's mid-pack in 9th.
Yeah, so far, Munt's one of the top drivers in the session, one of the drivers we've seen over the championship history do very well, I will say, on top of things, usually amongst the drivers we've seen in the top 5 or top 10 conversation each week when it comes to these races. But the challenge for a lot of these drivers is going to be for today, I think, David. A lot of these competitors are going to have to be thinking about, how am I going to deal with the aero wash? How am I going to deal with battling in traffic? A lot of these drivers in practice are getting opportunities on their own for the most part. In the race, it's a lot more different in terms of the flow of things. Once you're in the pack and once you have to deal with drivers going back and forth.
So it'll be final preparations for the drivers. One of the things we often discuss in these races with this format is qualifying will be 10 minutes and 2 flying laps. Well, you go to some small racing tracks, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, and not a problem at all. But here, Spa, it's one of the big daddies, 7 kilometers, one of the longest laps in permanent race tracks anywhere outside of Le Mans and the Nordschleife. So to get your out lap and then 2 flying laps completed in 10 minutes might become a bit of a tight squeeze. That's why our drivers will be wanting to be ready to go out on track in qualifying when it clicks over momentarily. 21 drivers and their Super Formula Light cars. These cars are also racing in Europe this year. So on iRacing, they're licensed from Super Formula, but they're also from...
And it brings that unique driving style that you have to have with it, where Dardier is going to be a major impact, as touched upon, and you have to be able to know how to attack the racetrack when you're in the midst of Dardier in the tight corners. But in qualifying, you're on your own. And the track temperature going down a decent bit here in the session, it looks like, to 76 degrees Fahrenheit for today. Going to be fairly decent temperatures, decent amount of grip out there as a result of the conditions. It is locked at 10:30 in sim time, mind you, so should stay constant throughout this race.
Wow, I just looked at it. Euro Formula Open's already been to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, 17th and 18th of May. So perfect conditions for qualifying. Looks simply gorgeous out there. You've got a mid-morning sun, and it's coming down on the racetrack, giving us 20 degrees Celsius in the air, 24 degrees Celsius on the track. You saw it in Fahrenheit. And this is the drivers around their outlap here, pushing pretty significantly, trying to build some tyre temperature in racing conditions with this car. We see that the fastest lap of the race can often happen at the end of a 30-minute race. So I don't think there'll be too much dawdling. I think there'll be quite a bit of trying to use these sections of the track through the middle sector to build some high speeds, lateral loads, and therefore some tyre temperature and pressure and confidence.
And it's about finding the optimal window in those temperatures too. Absolutely. To be able to make sure you don't pass that window, you don't end up losing potential ground and time of the racetrack. One thing I'm noticing with some of these drivers too, they're taking their time to make sure they don't go off track, invalidate potential laps here, don't get dirt on the tires, don't cause some extra difficulties for the qualifying runs. It's still on the warm-up for the most part for these drivers, but it's going to be so critical to make sure you don't end up overexerting the tires while trying to put down the 2 laps here today.
John Payne, the championship leader, the champion-elect, will be one of the very, very first drivers to start a flying lap, him alongside Russ Addy as well. So the timing line is there. The clock starts for your first of 2 qualifying efforts. If you go off track on either of your laps, if you spin out on both of your laps, then you will be starting from the back of the grid. So is there a tendency in this first lap to just play things a little bit safe with the lines, with the limits of the grip of the car? John Payne heads out of the La Source hairpin, full throttle, up the hill, through Eau Rouge and Radion. For a car like this, lots of grip. Doesn't seem like it's too much of a problem. Franz Josef Sturm also in a similar part of the racetrack, heading through the kink and then up the Kemmel Straight towards the braking zone at Lecombe. Long run at completely full throttle. John Payne arrives at the end of the straight, passes the timing beam at the end of the first sector, and John Payne is currently fastest. Roberto Catalano eclipses it as we track how they're progressing on their first laps.
Approach pretty similar when it comes to the run through some of the curbing to make sure you stay alongside. Then you go through No Name. A lot of competitors have picked up some off tracks there. Looked like some nearly picked up some dirt on the right side tires. They'll make their way through Poulan here. A little bit curbing picked up by the 34, going to cost them ground. John Payne, for reference, looking a little bit more smoother in that section. That's picked up about an extra half a second or so, I believe, compared to what the 34 is doing. You can see with the motions, he's taking a lot less curbing. He's got a lot more smoother flow when working the way through Finches, working up to 14 and 15 to be able to build some momentum around this lap right now. Right now, it's had some issues with the corner exits compared to Payne and with how he's attacked the track.
Well, the fastest sectors are a complete scattershot. John Payne with the fastest second sector, Stump with the fastest first sector. Russ Addy picks up the fastest third sector of the 4 that I'm measuring, but we're about to see the ultimate conclusion of the first flying laps as they cross the checkered flag timing line to complete the first of 2 laps. John Payne crosses the line. Russ Addy crosses the line. No, sorry, this is historic Grand Prix, so the timing line's down between La Source and Eau Rouge.
Louis, so a different location for the timing beam. 2:10.4 for John Payne, 2:11.9 for Franz. So there is that loss, as mentioned, in the second sector that does end up hurting the 34, and that's going to require being a bit more consistent on the second time around. Some of these drivers just trying to see where they stack up in the session. Remember, the spread in practice ended up being as high as 5 seconds.
So we do get times from 13 drivers to this point and more potentially to come. John Payne from Roberto Catalano and Mike McCormick. Here's JC Hay, believe from Ohio. at a big gathering of 1/4 of all of the world's blimps in Ohio the other day to celebrate Goodyear's birthday. Very, very exciting. We're racing on Kumo tires, I believe, today.
Yeah, not Goodyear's, believe, when it comes to the branding. But still, these tires hold up fairly well in the sim, we'll say, and how they handle the racetrack. A lot of these drivers, JC Hay picking up some sand, might have gotten some off tracks possibly there. Steam Malley. Decent flow for his lap right now, just trying to get good arcs to the bottom screen. See some of the onboard for some of the differential right now. O'Malley putting a decent amount of turn in to be able to rotate as he gets himself to the gears.
JC Hay with a slightly dirtier visor at the moment. Inches his way through Blanchemont. Flat chat, absolutely no problems. Then looking for the biggest braking zone on the lap. 6th gear into the bus stop, all the way down to first, rising up. Not wanting to clip any of those gigantic curbs in a low-riding, stiff car like this. Through the bus stop, he'll go to La Source, which I've realised today is actually the final corner, not the first corner for the historic Grand Prix layout. And then out of that La Source hairpin and downhill towards the timing line at the old pit lane and the old timing tower just there. Sort of looks like a 1960s airport air traffic control tower. A few of these times will stick and you'll see some big changes in the timing column left-hand side of screen. Greg Garris jumping up, Steve O'Malley slotting into 15th, Roberto Catalano going to 2nd place, and his second lap being just 7/100ths behind John Payne, who's completed his qualifying and currently sits in provisional pole. Super close between Payne and Catalano. Here comes Gerhardus Jorrison, who hasn't set a time just yet.
Yeah, he's the only person, in fact, not set a time, just changed that fact. Able to get up to 7th on the second time around, so that's why it's so important to make sure you don't invalidate one of your laps, and kind of answers the question you had earlier. Do you push on the first lap or do you wait for the second lap? Well, the risk is if you try and wait till the second lap for your push lap and you validate, it puts you in a box. For most of these drivers, able to at least get the first lap down to make sure the banker was down from here on out. Most of these drivers at this point just take the opportunity to practice.
Yeah, every driver's now completed their 2-lap allotment except Pierre Dinette, the 21 car. Currently sits 15th. He's about to cross the line, and we'll see. There's a couple of personal bests here. This could jump him a spot. Doesn't need too much time to jump a spot or two, and he will. Just jumping ahead of Mike Grandian up into 14th place. So finding improvement from lap 1 to lap 2 should certainly build some confidence as we head towards the 12-lap race number 1 after this.
Yeah, that's going to get interesting how they play the racing lines when it comes to that 12-lapper. It should go pretty quickly when you think about it, actually, in terms of the laps. 2-minute 10s times that by about 12. You're talking about a race that can easily zoom by within the 30-minute time limit by a couple minutes or so. But it's still going to be so important to make sure those who got the track position, that you have the opportunity to get slingshots set up down till they come up the Camel Straight, and to be able to set yourself up long term for the technical sections.
This is one of the iRacing circuits that I believe has 3D curbs enabled. As I look at some of these curbs, I'm pretty sure I can see that. The way that they're being rendered, I could see the cones blocking off the Grand Prix pit entry and just leaving the historic open. Clock's about to run out on qualifying. Every driver has been out and completed their 2 laps, so there will be no change to this. The front row will be John Payne, the champion-elect, with Roberto Catalano alongside, super close between those two. And then Paul Stump in 3rd, Greg Garris in 4th, Mike McCormick in 5th, and Todd Scholl in 6th. Gerhardus Jorrison qualified 7th, ahead of Ulf Olsen. Barry Hills in 9th, Russ Addy in 10th, Pete Thomas in 11th, Franz Josef Sturm in 12th. with Peter Holstrom 13th, Pierre Benet's the last driver to set a qualifying time, jumping up to 14th ahead of Mike Grandy, who'll start out at 15th, Steve O'Malley 16th, Eugene Clark 17th, Tom DeSelms 18th, and then J.C. Hay of Ohio in 19th, Jerry Kerr in 20th, and Jan-Erik Skrefsrud in 21st. Quite a few sort of F1 tribute liveries out there. Most interesting for me, Steve O'Malley's sort of 1989 United Colours of Benetton right there.
Especially with the history of Benetton in general, it just pops, that paint scheme, to say the very least. Think back to the early years of Michael Schumacher that raced with Benetton's, correct me if I'm wrong, as well, before he went off to Ferrari. But for these drivers here today, they're about to have some fun, to say the very least. 2 races on the docket. It's going to be the question, can you keep it clean at the start? And then can you keep yourself in the main pack to be able to try and slingshot forward?
Short formation lap will certainly present a challenge as far as tyre temperature and tyre preparation. When the green flag drops, they will have not gone particularly far or particularly fast, and we'll need to be careful heading up Eau Rouge and Raidillon for the first time, and then the Kemmel Straight. A massive drafting opportunity in these cars, which, with their wings, exposed tyres, and a capable but modest horsepower, slipstreaming is always incredibly powerful in junior level single-seaters like these Super Formula Lights are. A Dallara chassis, an evolution of their long history of making classic F3 cars. The steering wheel, actually the same as the previous generation as well. Safety car won't pull off this corner. That pit entry's closed. It'll have to wait till La Source.
Drivers just taking their time to make sure they get through the course before they double up, I think, at this point. Make sure there's no bits of contact. But for these competitors, going to be all full throttle up the hillside as they battle through Raidillon and Eau Rouge. Going to be important to time up this start if you want to be able to get a good launch and be able to get the whole shot planned out right.
So there's the pit entry for the historic to the right-hand side there. Front row of the grid, getting very, very close. John Payne and Roberto Catalano heading down the classic start-finish straight, waiting on a green flag that they get now. 12 laps for race 1 of 60-plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Lights at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and it's an incredible start from John Payne. Roberto Catalano on the back foot as side-by-side is always heart in mouth. Hold your breath. Heading up Raidillon on the first lap. Paul Stump trying to challenge him, eventually now drops back a little bit. Mike McCormick gets a good run in the tow, all heading with cold tyres, cold brakes towards the braking zone, coming across, making a bit of contact there. Paul Stump and Mike McCormick, but a perfect race launch from John Payne, who leads them into the middle sector.
Terrible launch for Catalano in particular, though. Was surprised he didn't line up side by side with Payne. Cost him an opportunity trying to at least fight for the initial start for the green flag with how things go with the control. And now forced to fall in the dirty air. You see those puffs of dirt? That's partly because he's pushing tight with his aero wake right behind Payne. That's going to carry him going wide each and every time in the tire tracks.
Has that gone? No, stopped in the gravel, Mike McCormick. I thought, has that gone all the way to the wall? But he's going to drop to the very, very tail of the field. A struggle and a problem into the double left-hander at Pouon on the opening lap. He drops out of the front of the field and right towards the back as our current podium places of Payne, Catalano and Paul Stump pull away from the rest of the field there. Greg Garris in 4th. Paul Stump using the slipstream. Here's a look at McCormick. Is it too much curb? I think he turns in too late, too aggressively for the lack of tyre temperature, and is fortunate to not hit the tyres of the Tech Pro.
Yeah, it looked like he overpushed. Great job to lock it down to make sure he didn't lose the car and have it spin around and crash into the stand trap. It's going to be dealing with Buzz tires. A big spin. Randy has just gone around to the straightaway as the battle for seconds on screen. Some of the other drivers are falling down the pylon.
Yes, contacts in the left-hander at Blanchimont. Mike Grandy going around. So here's Grandy round the outside of what I believe is Pierre Benet's. And it's just a tiny touch at massive speed. Okay.
Yeah,
that smoke, I believe in you.
Yeah, that was Holstrom, I believe. That was making the Hardy cut. Grandy did a great job to lock it down after the contact. Had a little bit of air between him and the red machine. Kept to the inside, scraped up the wing with the contact to the wall, though. Watch right here. Tries to give a small pinch, thought it was going to be clear on the radio. He was almost clear.
Start battling for second, goes into the wall as well, so it's all happening at Spa, and Todd Scholl and a few other cars collected there. At Lacombe and Malmedy, Greg Garris goes up into second because I think there's damage to Catalano and Stump, who are battling second and third.
I think we almost had a repeat of what just happened the previous incident, David, with the live situation. Car thought it was clear, almost cleared. In that case, Paul Stump not think was clear in Lacombe, and it ends up causing a spin and some contact for Stump. That's allowed, well, Payne to completely run away, as this was in the battle for second. Great run by Stump. Builds up the run to the inside. The problem is, you have to be able to clear by the left-hander in Lacombe. He didn't fully clear. Comes across the nose, spins him and Catalano out. Causes both of them lose time and the latter of the two cars to crash.
Here's Catalano's perspective. Paul Stump's got him relatively beat here.
But he was there.
Yeah, it's just a tiny bit of overlap as well. And oh, Catalano gets leapfrogged, pole vaulted by Todd Scholl there. So as we go back to the live pictures, John Payne leads by 5.5 seconds over this group, this train. Greg Garris, Ulf Olsen, Gerhardus Jorrison, Barry Hills, Russ Addy. Pete Thomas is up 4 positions. Franz Josef Sturm is up 4 positions. And Paul Stump, after all of that, joins the tail of this. Don't know how much damage he may or may not be carrying. You can still see second place.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult to close up the gap at this point for the race lead with how big the deficit is. All of this as well. Addy makes the move on Hills. The move done on the Egnell Dutch racing machine. And that's now moved him on up, and that's how you do it. Get the slipstream done, complete the pass before the corner. No risk of contact. And now Addy continuing to gain some ground as a lot of drivers are locking up their tires here.
So we take a look quickly at Todd Scholl's perspective. 2 cars spun out in front of him, and he looks at the smoke and he picks the wrong way. You couldn't quite see which way the other car was going through the smoke. Went left, and that's also where Roberto Catalano was going, and he leapt over him. Ralph Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, Australia 2002.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. You're on that inside line anyway to set things up for the next corner, so that's the racing line in that situation. Just puts you in a horrible spot for that type of situation. Still that battle for 5th. It's been pretty close. Much a good opportunity for someone like Hills to regain some draft, pick up the momentum, but the problem is you have to be brave if you're going to go side by side. And you have to have that mega run in the first place. It's all about the braking by the time you get to the bus stop and being able to outmaneuver your opponent.
Replay of Jan-Erik Skrefsrud spinning out at Lacombe. Not too much damage done compared to some of the other things we've seen there. 3-minute pit stop for Roberto Catalano. It looks like he rejoins the race. Mike Grandy also rejoined the race after taking a repair, and we wait on seeing if Todd Scholl resumes in race 1 or doesn't, or hangs around for race 2. We'll see what happens there. So we're going to head up the hill and into the most speedy slipstreaming opportunity. Paul Stump's been gaining some positions back, so he passed Pete Thomas. Now he's behind Franz Josef Sturm and Barry Hills. Sturm trying to make a move there. We're going to go 3 wide on the Camel Straight. Everyone's got to give their space, and it's Paul Stump to the furthest inside, but backs out of it, I'd say. Very, very cleverly. Franz Josef Sturm goes ahead of Barry Hills. Barry Hills moves back on him. Looking to the inside now on Sturm. Paul Stump will go 2 for 1. Franz Josef Sturm getting railroaded at the end of the Camel Straight.
I think that was smart by Stump. Don't force a 3 wide. Don't force contact. Just follow the hole opened up in that case by Hills. Hills is one of the drivers looking pretty solid right now in defense right now. Tough thing is, they did lose touch to Russ Addy, and it can be pretty tricky to gain to a drafting pack unless you have raw speed. Looking solid so far, up +2, Pete Thomas, the Fossil Machine. Looking to fall on behind, now to set up a move on Stump.
Plenty of dirt, dust, gravel being kicked up in all sorts of places as drivers use as much road as they can to carry momentum through the middle sector of the lap. To be 4 laps completed with 8 still to go in race 1. It's a 2-race format for 60+ racing adventures. Second race has its own qualifying session, and it's a brand new slate. This could end in disaster, or it could be glorious. 2 wide, heading into Blanchemont, Mike McCormick ahead of Eugene Clark. Tom DeSelms and Peter Holstrom just behind them. Eugene Clark doesn't think this is done. Mike McCormick thinks it is. Tiny bit of a lock-up heading in there. Definitely seeing when there's a bit of elevation change and they're turning into a corner, they can lock up the inside front pretty easily in these cars.
Yeah, especially if you end up sending it too aggressively, absolutely. And that's why we're seeing so much of the tire smoke. We'll say the drivers who are able to avoid chewing up their tires with those lockups are the ones who succeed the most. Here comes that run once again from Stump, trying to make up for the previous lap. And this time, able to at least get to the front tires. Will he get some give and take? Yes, he will. And oh no, another spin. Russ Addy lost it from the main line. Hits a little bit too much curbing.
Said there's 3D curbings here, and I think that's what Russ Addy's tripped up on, as well as just extending the track a little bit too far as he drops away. Paul Stump now moves back into 5th. Barry Hills gains a spot from that as well. Here he is, turning into Lacombe. It's the first part of the curb that gets him, bottoms out that this car, as will happen, I don't know, driving over a chocolate bar.
Some people forget the texturing of the curbing. It can bounce you around. It can shake your cart and your car. It can cause a lot of issues compared to some of the older tracks where you might not have the same texturing, or other circuits in general where it might be a bit more flat or the curbing. Take, for example, somewhere like Sebring, where it will absolutely chatter your teeth along the curbing. It's not as bad at Spa, but it still can absolutely cause snap-arounds like we've already seen some drivers do as Paul Stump tries to close up a 1.5 second gap.
Having passed Barry Hills on the Camel Straight, he hasn't quite been able to shake him through some of the other parts of the lap. Maybe he'll bring this group further up. Corvick ahead of Steve O'Malley. No one catching John Payne as he is continually setting and resetting the fastest lap of the race. He does it again, crossing the timing line once more, down to a 2:10 flat. Greg Garris, Ulf Olsen looking for a podium. Gerhardus Jorrison just close enough. I'd say 6/10 is probably about the sweet spot coming over the rise and onto the Camel Straight. Maybe a tiny bit closer, but you'll get the toe pretty powerfully at that distance.
Yeah. For the most part, everyone's separated themselves out across this field. We'll say, David, that's the tricky thing about a track like Spa. Once you have the packs broken up like this, it's hard to close back up unless you have raw speed. There's a reason John Payne's running away as he is. He's just got so much talent and so much experience with open wheel machinery. Usually performs very well. There's a reason why he's one of the top drivers for the past couple of years with the series. Now, the tough thing for a lot of these other groups right now is going to be being able to get strapped to the bootstrap, so to speak, and trying to claw your way into these packs. It takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of thinking and planning, or better yet, just trying to consistently hit your marks once you break free of a pack if necessary.
A couple seasons of 60-plus racing adventures as the bride for John Payne as well, as he watched championships go to Ragnar Wisloff and Greg Seitz. But now, this season is John Payne's season. This race is certainly looking like John Payne's race. Here's Gerhardus Jorgensen shaping for a podium. You see this often, different lines through the bus stop chicane. If you can't get down the inside to try to pass them, what you do is you try to stay tight through the first part, open up the second part, launch onto the pit straight with some speed, challenge them into La Source, do the same again to try to challenge him down Eau Rouge and challenge him. He will. Oh, the two of them come together off the gravel, spinning back onto the racetrack. Ulf Olsen and Gerhardus Jorgensen make contact. Greg Garris goes to second. Paul Stump is back into a podium position, but that was the pressure applied until it cracked and took both of them.
Another disastrous sequence for drivers. What else can you say other than that's what happens when you drive in the turn, and better yet, that's what happens when you already cross the sausage curb and then try and cut across back again in that situation. Believe that actually launched across the track into the air. You have to be smart. And that's the tough thing is you're thinking, I got to get back on track, got to get back on track. No traction, and your tires get lifted up at the double whammy.
Yeah, Olsen very wide out through the gravel, tried to keep it going, and it pitched him back onto the track. And as you say correctly, it sort of picked him up over the curb. Both of them have then hit the inside of the pit wall. This is Russ Addy and Pierre Binetz through P1. Oh, switch from Stump to look to the inside. Not a whole lot of overlap. Binet gives him an incredible amount of space, which is generous. But then the track goes left. Could have closed the door there and didn't, but Paul Stump sees that this is not going to work out especially well for him. Mike McCormick catches the both of them as they battle like this. Here we go, heading to Blanchimont. The inside's open for Paul Stump. And again, he thinks, I'm not really going to get enough overlap down there. So he's waiting for a perfect opportunity. A couple of imperfect ones have presented themselves.
Yeah, he's trying. He's been pushing. But it's still nothing doing. That's the tough thing right now is Addy. He's already made a few mistakes. He's had some off tracks build up in this race. Remember, there is the 17 incident point limit as well, so he's going to have to be careful on that. But in most cases right now, he's gotten the runs when to the outside, only to the rear tire. Basically when the run's not fully there yet. Now this setup here might be able to get something, that little cutout, going to hurt him a touch. But Addy doing a good job to be able to get to the inside, try and break some toe, maybe feed some draft as well to Mike McCormick.
Well, he was almost too close coming up over Radion. Didn't get a big slingshot toe pass. He just had to sort of get to the inside, make that move. DeSelms versus Peter Holstrom. It's DeSelms around the outside, goes ahead of Holstrom. We've seen Russ Addy take his 7th place there ahead of Pierre Binetz and maybe look to pull away through this middle sector. Mike McCormick runs wide out of what people want me to call Brussels, and I'm still calling Rivage. Steve Amell is just behind them. John Payne's race lead is dropping and dropping quickly. He's down to just 7 seconds, 6.5 seconds ahead of Greg Garris. Is it just encountering some traffic here? Who is a lap down? Roberto Catalano.
Yeah, Catalano's not making it easy to get by, at least not yet. Payne, I think, is just letting him keep in front. Not going to push the issue. Doesn't need to push the issue. He's got a decent enough buffer. It's just a matter of making sure he doesn't completely lose this cushion on the racetrack.
I think Catalano has caught and unlapped himself from John Payne here.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say too. He was a lap down to start the lap, so Catalano kind of showing he might be quicker. Oh, some drivers scattered a little bit in the final corners. Select able to keep it side by side though. McCormick able to pick up another spot. Has LaSource better breaking in compared to Bennett as well.
Has just a little bit of slide with the traction coming out. The pressure is on Pierre Bennett right now. I've thought if you gave them the position into LaSource, you very well could strike back on the Kemmel Straight. Let's see. Bennett looks a little lost for a racing line, following directly behind the car in front. This is perfect slipstreaming distance, and it's perfect slipstreaming speed for Pierre Bennett. Crosses 250 k's an hour, goes to the inside line, heading towards Lacombe. It is a sharp climb up the Kemmel Straight here, makes the slipstream extra powerful, and Bennett moves back in, cuts the track, runs wide into the gravel. Does not have a slowdown penalty, but will give that spot back. And here comes Steve O'Malley, not able to quite close down. Bennett had done so well until he just overcooks the braking zone.
Yeah, he is over pushing right now and just costing himself more and more time. He had gone ahead at one point by about 6-7 spots. Now it's down to +5 and a risk of going down only a +4. So he might have overused up those tires. They might be so getting red hot. Those little wiggles right there are a good sign that he's leaning on the rears, just trying to hold on for dear life and take the car where it's taking him. Just holding on as it continues to miss corner after corner.
Don't think that's great for your tires. As the pressure continues to mount, Steve O'Malley has a good run heading towards Blanchimont. There was contact for someone else who tried to go around the outside of Bennett earlier in this race at Blanchimont. Steve O'Malley still looking for that outside lane to cut through the fast left-hander. About to start 3 to go. Oh, a lock-up from the driver in front. All 4 locked up from Mike McCormick as he then gathers it. Joins this group back together. He won't streak away from Pierre Bennett or Steve O'Malley.
Slowly getting himself a drop distance. That bobble right there is going to cost him a chance to make up some spots though this lap, as Bennett might be taking this run a little bit too early. Cost himself some momentum to make sure he burped the throttle to go up the hillside and time it up for corner exit.
Yeah, 4 or 5 car lengths better seems better than being 1 car length back, but it won't dissuade Pierre Bennett from trying to go around the outside Mike McCormick. Not a lot of speed at all. Pick up a bit of wing damage or something bouncing across one of those curbs. Is he nursing another problem, which is what gave him the slide and the lock-up? He seems to be under a fair bit of pressure here. Pierre Bennett getting ahead of him and getting a second clear. Steve O'Malley getting just in behind Mike McCormick. Steers through the right-hander, but I think everyone's locking up and understeering there right now.
Everybody's overcooking the tires right now. See this rear view, Cormac. Just trying to get the turn and right, missed a bit of the apex this time, but so far has gotten the flow together on this racetrack after seeing his mistake earlier on. Going to be an okay points haul for the first race. Looks like as long as he does not bin the car, although he's pushing it with all these off tracks starting to add up with sand. Another hit to the sand.
So there's a fair bit of spread happening across the top 4 positions. John Payne, Greg Garris, Paul Stump, Barry Hills. 5th place, Franz Josef Stumm, as Pete Thomas just behind. Near identical lap times by both of these drivers last lap. Thomas is definitely in the zone for a slipstream, about half a second back, potentially closing a little more. Pete Thomas is the highest running driver from Club Canada. Justin.
Yeah. Oh, Canada indeed. Wide diversity of drivers and regions. You have a couple Canadians, you have a lot of Americans, of course, but many more from Europe on some of these battles here today. Thomas seems to be in a decent spot to maybe sling it up the inside. Nothing else to do but take it. There's less than 2 laps to go. This race is flown on by.
That looks pretty well executed. Pete Thomas goes into 5th place ahead of Franz Josef Sturm. Ooh, similar could happen between Tesselms and Hallstrom further back. And the carbon fiber going on for Sturmy. You got a favorite thing made of carbon fiber that doesn't need to be made of carbon fiber, like umbrellas or luggage? Submersibles?
I'm not sure how that gets to racing, but carbon fiber is everyone's best friend.
Unique properties, but very light. Got to protect it from UV. The sun is a deadly laser. We're not far away from starting the final lap of the race. John Payne's the championship leader. He was the pole man, and he's the race leader as we head towards the white flag. Other positions yet to be determined. Paul Stump in third's actually been catching Greg Garris, and will start this final lap only 1.5 seconds behind him. Pete Thomas, having made the move on this lap, is stretching away from Franz Josef Sturm. In the mid-pack, a couple of battles are brewing for the very, very final lap that John Payne starts now.
Final time here in Spa for the first race at least. Field's done a good job in terms of the battling, in terms of some of the intervals built up, in terms of the rhythm. Paced along, but Thomas, one of the close battles. Stubby might get close, but don't think it's close enough to a lunge. No, too far out of range at the moment. Everyone else just trying to make sure they finish and get the points.
The other drivers that could pass each other down the Kemmel Straight: Mike McCormick, Steve O'Malley, Eugene Clark, Peter Hallstrom, and Tom DeSalms. As your positions gained, quite a few drivers making a lot of spots, particularly at the expense of drivers that qualified well and then crashed out. Gerhardus Jorrison, Roberto Catalano, Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, etc. So if you started outside of the top 5, a whole bunch of spots there you could have gained throughout this race if you kept your Super Formula Light clean. It's just a couple more corners for John Payne to put a victory in the column from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. Barney, the flagman's moved across the other side of the paddock. He's not there. It's empty at the Grand Prix start-finish line. He's over at the classic, historic start-finish line. So it's one more corner for John Payne. And after 12 laps, he's led every single one of them. He's got the fastest lap of the race in his pocket. It is a championship drive from John Payne, the season champion of 60-plus racing adventures.
Dominant performance, more than 7 seconds again in interval. Once he dealt with lap traffic, ran away again, should say. Greg Garris, Paul Stump able to drive on the podium. Paul Stump, solid drive once again. Barry Hills got far, up 5. Pete Thomas up 6, with Stump up 6 as well.
Heading down towards the checkered flag, just a couple of cars left on the lead lap. This is how they've crossed the line. John Payne from Greg Garris and Paul Stump is our top 3. Barry Hills, Pete Thomas, Franz Josef Sturm, Russ Addy, Pierre Bennett, Mike McCormick, and Steve O'Malley.
Clark back there, Peter Hallstrom also back there, Tom Deschelms along with Kerr, Hay, Grandy, along with Olsen, Jorgensen, Catalano finishing 1 lap down in 19th. Script run finishing in 20th position in this field. Overall, 21 started. Todd Scholl was the last of those drivers.
Yeah, that was our 21 from quite a chaotic race 1 or 2 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures from Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Side-by-side battling, claiming some victims at Blanchimont, at Lacombe and at Malmedy, but giving us some great battles along the Kemmel Straight. John Payne seals his championship victory in some great form. And we'll get through our podium. Greg Garris is with Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. I believe he charged straight onto the podium and into the broadcast booth. Greg, how were you feeling about the run, holding on to second?
It was good. I was afraid that Paul was going to catch me. He was coming fast.
How tricky was this racetrack for the first race here today to be able to get a flow, but also to try and solidify your position in your respective grouping to be able to separate from Paul Stump and company?
Well, I was glad I had a little help from my friends in front of me that didn't quite make it through. But it was tricky. It seems like a new scan. It was a whole new track for me when I got on to start practicing last week. So I was glad to be able to do as good as I did.
How are you going to approach race 2 on the day?
The best I can.
Keeping it quite simple. Anyone you want to thank for the run for race 1?
Well, thank you guys for this, and thanks to other administrators for our league. And it's been a fun league. It's a good league to drive with and fun to be with. Thanks to my teammate, Todd, for encouragement in his racing this season.
Thank you very much for the time, Greg. Good luck in race 2.
Thank you.
And that is Greg Garris coming away second. John Payne also standing on by. He's with David.
Oh, congratulations, John.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Sounding great. Are you feeling great after that one?
Yeah, this track is, I think, the hardest track to ever get away from anybody on. And so once I had the pole, and looking at who was where behind me, I thought, I'm going to try to see if I can get Paul and Roberto to start racing. And I did. And then I guess something happened. I hadn't had a chance to see the replay yet, and then that was that.
Well, you did the work all through the season. You did the work in qualifying. What was most challenging about this track?
Oh, this track. I guess the most challenging was Roberto and Paul. They had, my qualifying lap, I thought, well, that's a pretty good lap. And then they were right there. And so what are the odds that 3 people had their best lap? I didn't think so. I thought that they're pretty good at this track. And so my goal was just to try to get out and get away. And then once I did, Roberto came out of the pits. He gave me a tow because I wanted to get a fast lap. I wanted what I call the perfect race. Pole, led most laps, no incidents, and fast lap. And Roberto gave me a tow because he would be the one, I think, that would win the fast lap competition. But he gave me a tow. So I end the season with max points, and I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Favorite Belgian food? Is it chocolate? Is it waffles? Is it fries with mayonnaise?
Boy, waffles jumped to my head, but I do like fries with mayonnaise. I'd take waffles.
And in what way are you going to celebrate your 60 Plus Racing Adventures Championship?
I don't know. Probably. I think we're just going to maybe tip a cold one tonight or something like that. My wife doesn't think it's that big of a deal, so I don't think we will be celebrating. But in my head, I'll be celebrating.
You'll carry that smile and that glow with you all week and all through the next season, no doubt. You're going to be doing race number 2. What are we going to expect?
Yeah, I am going to do race number 2. I think I'm going to try to stay in the pack, so it's a little more interesting. I'll give it up my all for qualifying, but I'm not going to try to defend if anybody, on one of those straights wants by and then just tow it out to the end and see what shakes out. But I want to look at some action this time. Hopefully there will be no problem like there was earlier.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck with that and believe that we'll be celebrating you. So, well
there
done.
you go. Thank you.
Just go print off your own, certificate or make your own trophy or
my
something.
wife's gone right now, and there's a trophy shop not too far from here. I'll go drop about $200 on some massive trophy. Tell her they sent it to me.
It's surprising how cheap it is to just make your own trophy for any occasion. So
Isn't it?
Something to think about, John.
I had to buy a trophy a couple years ago, and I was like, these are a bargain.
They give them out to kids, 10-year-olds. So you got to buy heaps of them for cheap. They're available for cheap. Well, yeah, once again, congratulations. It's an interesting racetrack that we saw plenty of racing through the mid-pack, and maybe you'll see a little bit of that one in race 2, and we'll chat again.
All right, thanks.
Well, race 1 completed, a bit of a gap till we go to qualifying and race 2 of the season finale of 60-plus racing adventures from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. You'll see it here on RaceSpotTV, so stick with us. We'll be back soon. back for the final bow before the curtain falls. It's the final race of the final round of 60-plus racing adventures, Super Formula League, and it's here live at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps on RaceSpotTV. David Haynes with Justin Prince, Ramiro Agustin Cisneros in the production booth, bringing us pictures, replays, all of it. And the drivers are just about to go out for qualifying to set the grid for this race 2, Justin.
And we've seen in the last race, for the most part, things got separated out, especially with the attrition for some of the top drivers in the early going of the race. Now it's the matter of seeing how some drivers recover for that to close out the season strong, hope to keep it clean, and see can they keep up with Payne and make sure they don't lose him. With what happened, the separation built up massively as a result of that pack completely falling apart with attrition.
Weather the same as it was for qualifying and race 1. One change though. Ragnar Wisloff is on the grid for race number 2, and he's out on track for qualifying as well. 16 drivers present for this second race. 14 are on track right now. Pierre Binetz and Gerhardus Jorgensen aren't. And some of the first lap times we're going to see are going to be from John Payne, Greg Garris, and this driver Ulf Olsen. Here's Garris. We spoke to him after race 1, didn't we?
Yes, indeed, and was looking just to keep on improving. Quite simply was kind of the message he emphasized. Kept it simple. Looking to keep it simple in terms of the driving here in this one. We'll see if the attrition builds up in front of him again to be able to gain some of the spots like he did, or if he's able to make some passes to be able to get himself into those podium positions this time.
So once again, we're racing on the modern scan of Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, but the historic Grand Prix configuration means that pit lane there and that start-finish line are closed. It's the one on the other side, heading down towards Eau Rouge and Radion, where the timing line is, where the pit lane is, and of course where the checkered flag waves at the end. The drivers are just now beginning their first flying laps of qualifying. Greg Garris, one of them. Tyre pressures will not be there as he sails up and over the hill at 240 kilometers an hour, picking up more as he goes along the Kemmel Straight. .6 through the first sector. Roberto Catalano 20.5, John Payne 20.5. So it's going to be competitive again up front this session. There wasn't even a tenth of a second after 7 kilometers to separate John Payne and Roberto Catalano in the qualifying for race 1. Now in the qualifying for race 2, things are going to be super close again. Greg Garris is one of the first lap times we're going to see if he keeps this one clean and keeps this lap together. Heading down towards Pouron, he goes behind him. John Payne.
I think Payne's still going to be the one to beat, obviously, with just how strong he ran. Pulled away from everybody once the draft was broken with the incident. He seems to be, once again, keeping himself clean, no overuse of the curbs, not too wide, looking solid on the throttle points up top. That 7 machine is going to be your other driver to keep an eye on. If he avoids trouble this race, wouldn't be surprised if things are mildly tight, because once Catalano caught up to Payne, they were very equal on draft. They were very equal on raw pace. It's just a matter of, will there be any passes that disrupt that for the 7?
Well, this first of 2 laps in qualifying is going to be super close between John Payne and Roberto Catalano. Those two are eventually, it looks like things are going to go up towards the top. All the purple sectors belong between those 2 drivers at the moment. Catalano fastest the first half of the lap. John Payne taking a little bit out of him through parts like Lafagna and Stavolo. Downhill, picking up all sorts of speed towards the start-finish line. Greg Garrison's first across the line. to go to the top. John Payne will displace him, but Roberto Catalano then now goes to the top. 2:10.5. First lap gives Roberto Catalano the provisional pole as more lap times come in.
Great first time around for Catalano. Expecting some more increase, though, for both of those drivers in the next few moments or so. Oh, Jorgensen also looked pretty solid in qualifying. Remember earlier on today in race 1 also. Looks okay in the first sector, it looks like, in terms of the interval. We'll see where he stacks up officially as Ragnar Wisloff puts himself fourth.
Jorgensen, one of the drivers we haven't seen a time from yet, as he's a little offset from everyone else's run plan. We've got 11 times, no time yet from McCormick, Grandy, Olsen, Jorgensen here, or Skrefsrud or Pierre Bennett, but everyone is out on track. Everyone completed qualifying and set a qualifying time for race 1, which isn't always the case. So maybe we see the same from race 2. Maybe we see them push a little harder for race 2. Jorgensen begins his first lap. Catalano and Payne are halfway around their second attempt, and again trading purple sectors. It is going to be so close for the pole once again between Catalano and Payne if they both keep it on the road. It's John Payne just about approaching Blanchimont. Shallow on the way in. Now I'm sure you keep it flat out, but maybe it scrubs a little bit extra. You can see how close this is. Payne just a little bit up through the first sector. Catalano a little bit up through the mid sector. They're both in the final sector now to complete their final laps. And can anyone pull a rabbit out of the hat? Because the way they're going, it's going to be less than half a tenth between them if these laps complete how they were after Sector 1, Sector 2. John Payne keeping a tight line out of La Source. I'm not sure this is his maximum optimized, maximum push lap. They go over the start-finish line. John Payne does improve, but Roberto Catalano improves more and extends his pole margin.
Catalano was amongst those who were extending a fair bit to the inside to be able to maximize that run down the front straightaway. Now he's got the opportunity to control this field after having such a struggle in the initial launch in race 1 from the outside, heading up the hillside, as a lot of these drivers finish up their laps.
Yeah, Mike McCormick went third, and then Todd Scholl eclipsed him. Pierre Bennett's had a bit of a lock-up through Rivage. We said he was a little later out on track. He hasn't set a lap time yet. This is actually his first flying lap, and so I suspect it will be his only. There's not enough time to get around, complete this lap, and start another one. So Bennett a little late out on track. Was he off-tracked his last lap? Not sure. Bennett no time, and for sure this is the only lap that will count for him, no matter what's happened before. Grandy on his second lap. Most drivers all left the pit lane at the very start of the session, have done their out lap, done their 2 flying laps, and are now parked up for the remaining couple of minutes. The outliers are Gerhardus Jorgensen crossing the line, jumping up into 6th. Personal best sectors for Mike Grandy. He might move off the board in 14th. And Pierre Bennett, the only driver without a qualifying time yet. It's all looked smooth enough and serene so far here, Justin.
Yeah, and usually it is very smooth on the qualifying. You would hope at the very least, because this is usually your best. No distractions, no issues on the racetrack in terms of anything that can cost you ground. Bennett needs to put a time down. He's the only person yet again to have an invalidated first lap, believe, in this session. Not getting as much maximized down the final straightaway, just trying to finish things out. Let's see, is there a time? Yes, he does put up a 13th place quality run.
So Mike Grandy's the only driver left who can complete a lap and change the qualifying order. He's heading towards La Source right now, sits 15th at the moment. Gained time all the way around this lap so far. Now out of La Source, around he shall go. We'll see if this moves the needle, moves him up a couple of positions. You betcha, he goes to 12th. So Mike Grandy picking up a little bit of time off that final lap. You're seeing gaps, not intervals, or is it the other way around on the timing column? at the moment. So that lap time from Mike Grandy puts him 1.7 seconds away from pole. 2/10 clear of Russ Addy, 4/10 behind Barry Hills. Ragnar Wisloff has completed all of his flying laps, but as we didn't see him in race 1, perhaps he does need all the practice and warm-up that he can get as he looks to start out of 5th for the final race of the season in 60-plus racing adventures. The clock runs out, the session moves on, the grid is locked in with Roberto Catalano on pole position ahead of John Payne. It's going to be a fight for John Payne if he's going to clean sweep Spa. Todd Scholl and Mike McCormick, 3rd and 4th on the grid. Ragnar Wisloff has qualified 5th in his appearance here, and Gerhardus Jorrison went to 6th. Greg Garris, some work to do from 7th if he's going to finish on the podium and chat with us again. Franz Josef Sturm in 8th, Ulf Olsen 9th. Peter Hallstrom has qualified in 10th. Barry Hills in 11th. Mike Grandy, like we said, moved up into 12th at the expense of Russ Addy and Pierre Bennett, who start 13th and 14th. Eugene Clark 15th. JC Hayes 16th. Jan Erik Srefsrud 17th. I'm seeing just a tiny bit of Jan Magnussen 1998 Tyrrell from Jan Erik Srefsrud, but perhaps I'm just hallucinating that.
Not quite sure, but I will say for these drivers here, it's going to get interesting how the second race plays out. Don't believe we've even seen Whistle out for the first race, so there's a little bit of a change potential for the Team Vikings machine. Try and change up the complexion of things. Todd Scholl going to be hoping to not be launched over top of car, though. Put up a great qualifying effort. Is now in prime position to be able to see if the draft's going to carry him forward and into the heart of this conversation for the race lead.
Yeah, let's see if Dr. Scholl can insert himself into the conversation. About to get rolling for this truncated formation lap again. Race start and green flag happens between La Source and Eau Rouge. So immediately they head down the hill picking up speed, and we'll see what happens on the Kemmel Straight this time around. A 12-lap affair. But it's a swap between Roberto Catalano and John Payne on that front row. Catalano will be ahead of Payne. The iRacing Porsche safety car pulls away and will pull up to 97 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, to try to help the drivers build a little bit of temperature and pressure. Ulf Olsen, the driver, looking most like they're trying to build some tyre heat.
Yeah, tire heat going to be pretty important, and make sure you don't slide to the cold tires, I think, and that's why you might see a couple drivers do some weaving, but not so much as you would see in real life compared to here in the virtual sim. We're not seeing anyone really step out for that, but these drivers get ready to go already, getting doubled up a little bit earlier this time for that start box.
17 Super Formula lights on the grid behind pole sitter Roberto Catalano. Around the source at pace car speed. And then a sharp jump to the right from the safety car. The field stacked up behind Roberto Catalano. They'll know where the green flag waves, but Roberto Catalano is already gone as we get underway. 12 laps for race 2, the season finale of 60-plus racing adventures. John Payne holds on to his second place side by side, some places through the field, and it's Mike McCormick who's going to look to pick up the double toe. Gerhardus Jorrison and Ragnar Wisloff side by side back there as Wisloff tries to hold on to his 5th place and just manages to fend off Garris. Now here comes John Payne looking out of the slipstream, tucking back into the Kemmel Straight. Roberto Catalano leads us from John Payne, from Mike McCormick. Todd Scholl holding on to his 5th, and it's Jorrison versus Garris, 6th and 7th, where they're going side by side through the corners at the end of the straight.
Not the greatest starts for Garris. It seems the heart of the field, some connection issues for Catalano. That's seen him start to pull away, actually go off a track a touch. John Payne, I noticed, let Catalano have the lead for the opening stretch through the corners, so they come backed off when he was offset down the Kemmel Straight. seems to be trying to think about this long term. Do I want to rush things? Do I want to control the lead early and then have a immediate swap? Or what would I do? For Franz Josef Stum, looks like some troubles may have popped up here.
Well, he's been a bit of a punching bag here, so he was wide through the gravel. Then he's losing positions. Then he gets hit heading down to Puon. Now he's been off the track at Lafania, so it was 3 wide. Just a tiny, tiny touch that sent him wide. He lost some spots. Stay with this, he'll be off the track again, unfortunately. Well, how about the race lead, actually? I don't mind that whatsoever. John Payne monstering Roberto Catalano. They've got 1.5 seconds on Mike McCormick back there in third. As they look to complete the opening lap. Biggest gainers being Russ Addy, Eugene Clark, JC Hay, and Jan-Erik Skrefsrud. This is backwards from the race leader at the new champion.
Payne, I think, just trying to play this smart, as mentioned. Doesn't want to rush into it, because if he makes the immediate pass, guess what? Next time around, he's going to be vulnerable to a pass right on back. Watch. Payne has set up, has the distance, able to trick out Catalano. Catalano only making his one move to the right. Opens up the door for Payne to be able to make a smart play to the outside, take the momentum forward to the lead. Wisloff also doing the same thing with Scholl.
Around the outside into Lacombe, John Payne takes the race lead for Roberto Catalano. Mike McCormick and Ragnar Wisloff both moving ahead of Todd Scholl, who's back into 5th. Barry Hill's battling Paul Stump through Malmedy. Many positions changing in the Kemmel Straight. Its high-speed, slipstreaming nature for these cars, giving us plenty of battles. It's one of the best places to watch from, no doubt, at the end of the Kemmel Straight there. John Payne now trying to break the toe a little bit here, heading down towards Puon. See the front 10 or so cars of your field plunging downhill through the middle sector.
Keeping focused right now. It's that battle for the race lead stays calm for now. Expect to heat up at Kemmel Street yet again. Russ Addy, several off tracks in the last race, slid back into this area he's at now. Think it's the matter of making sure the dirty air doesn't carry you off the racetrack. Lots of marbles being kicked up by these drivers, clipping the sand.
Jan-Erik Skrefsrud done more than clip the sand. He's been off, dropped to the back of the field, and is now towing the driver in 17th place. Roberto Catalano looking to strike back at John Payne, follows him closely through Bontremont, looks to the inside of the bus stop chicane, tries to outbrake down the inside, 2x2 for the race lead. Catalano moves back ahead. Mike McCormick closes in on the both of them. Sloth and Scholl will look to do similar. They've close up tighter again.
Quick Stubbs had to come down pit road, so it looks like 34's had some issues with their car that's popped up on the second lap. So it's not gone well for Stum. Ken confirming at the wall. That's why he's gone down pit road and taken one of the 2 faster pairs available. It's the battle for the race lead still heats up Catalano, holding on for the draft. Payne, yet again the slingshot on top box.
Massive speed advantage. John Payne doing 250 k's an hour behind Roberto Catalano's 243, but is forced around the outside again, and around the outside he goes once again, taking the race lead. Cormick and Wisloff beginning to leave Todd Scholl behind. Russ Addy ahead of Ulf Olsen, ahead of Barry Hill's bottom of your screen. Ups are plenty from those drivers descending downhill into a twisting braking zone. Race leader leads them through Puon, which is not much of a braking zone in these cars, near enough to flat out. John Payne takes them through 220 kilometers an hour, trying to break the toe in a couple of places where he can. Doesn't want Roberto Catalano to get too close too early around the lap here.
And this is on the tough part. We know Payne, once you put in a few laps, is able to build some distance on the rest of the pack. He's trying to do exactly that yet again. Be able to stretch away, try and break some of the draft, make it harder and harder for Catalano to be able to slingshot right on past. it's going to be tricky for the red machine to keep up right now. All this while, Wislov's doing a solid job keeping up for the podium spots. Seems to be thinking about a setup maybe for this time around, if not the next, on McCormick if he stays close enough to the 99.
Great load through the bus stop chicane. McCormick locked up a little bit. Wislov switched him up. Was looking for the inside at La Source. And Wislov flies down the inside into the hairpin. Is McCormick thinking long term to strike back on the Camel straight? Gives himself just a couple of car lengths back here to surge up the hill. Back in behind Wislov for that third position. McCormick can take it side by side again. Gave him the track position at the hairpin. Takes it back on the Camel straight. John Payne weaves around. Roberto Catalano tries to follow him in the tow, and it's side by side for third. It's all about late braking. McCormick gets in pretty deep around there, looks through, just covered off Wislov. Wislov sticks to the inside, but sweeping around the outside with more speed. McCormick ahead into third. Todd Scholl closes him up.
Nick blows up because, quite simply, you spend too much time battling back and forth, you lose time per corner. I've talked about this with people in real life when it comes to some of the racing as of late, and one of the main things they tell you is, yeah, you can run side by side for a pass, but if it loses you a couple tenths, it adds up per corner. Where you go side by side for 3 corners, that could be 1 full second, and then you're out of touch with drivers, or you wind yourself back right into a conversation for another fight instead. And that's the tricky thing. If you can't clear, then you end up having things snowball back. Snowballs the back end of the car into the
that
wall.
was from lap 1, I'm pretty sure. So 3 corners in a row, he found himself into a bit of trouble, and then got into Lafagna's. How he managed to do all of that damage. Sturm's back out on track, but that was lap 1. Towards Blanchimont, Ragnar Wislov in third, covers off Mike McCormick. Kardis Jorison has closed up massively on this podium fight. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth. All head into the bus stop chicane, big braking zone, and from a peak speed of over 250 kilometers an hour, they're working through the bus stop at 80.
No major issues. Everyone's staying lockstep right now for the next grouping of drivers to try the draft. What happened to 911? Similar issue as before. A rotation to the corner. Nearly backed it up into traffic.
Tatiana Greftrud ended up in 16th. Is Jorison taking a run at Todd Scholl. The other drivers are left-hand side of the racetrack, so it's more tow for Gerhardus Jorison to try to get ahead of Scholl, and he does. Scholl backs out of that one very early. Wislov remains ahead of McCormick, got a good enough run to stay ahead of him. Gerhardus Jorison up into 5th, might need to close some of those gaps up close at the end of the Camel Straight for some other battles like Russ Addy and Barry Hills. The Ebenetze ahead of JC Hay as well.
So far, no major crashes this race. Bit more cleaner so far. But a lot of the drivers that did well last race aren't doing as well this one. Bennett is amongst those in the conversation who moved up a fair bit in the early going of race 1, then lost a bit of ground towards the end. Has been able to move forward. Russ Addy. He's been someone moving forward, was a lot higher up in the running order for a majority of the first race. Just has been stuck in quicksand, though, with Barry Hills, who was a lot better last race.
So a couple of decent position gainers in this race. Russ Addy +5, Barry Hills +2, Ragnar Wislov qualified 5th, runs 3rd, and running away from them in that podium position at the moment. It's gains at the expense of drivers like Todd Scholl, Peter Holstrom, and particularly Franz Josef Sturm on board from the roll hoop of Barry Hills. Gets himself just a little bit tight through the bus stop. Doesn't accelerate out of it with the punch that you'd be hoping for. But very much like racing on the Daytona road course or Le Mans or something, There's a lockup. So long as you stay 4 or 5 car lengths to the car behind when you approach this part of the racetrack, from La Source, downhill, over the crest of the hill, and then along the Camel Straight, you'll close up so much if you can just be the right distance behind coming onto this sequence of high-speed full throttle.
It's all about timing. As you said, want to be a certain distance, about 3 to 5 car lengths. There's that 5 car lengths right there. Enough for you to make the pass. If you have some give and take, you can make it easily. If you get fought for it, it's a little bit more difficult. It's about timing things up and making sure you stay within those distances. Any further back, you're likely not completing the pass. Any closer, you risk checking up. A lot of tire smoke there by Hills. Carry the entire right side tires on tire brake, on trailing it, rather.
Yeah, and Russ Addy got in deep as well and almost ended up wide enough in the corner that he was sort of in the marbles and sort of in oval racing parlance that I know you're very familiar with, Justin Prince, sort of up in the grey and washing out of that corner, but just managed to pull it down. So he stays just in behind Barry Hills for the moment. Wolf Olsen behind them, quicker than Hills on the last lap. Here's a replay of Pierre Bennett's. Oh, seeing those curbs are pretty nasty if you break too deep into the Camel Straight. And then he's jumped back on at Malmedy. He's overcooked that too. The other drivers arriving on the scene try to go past him. So Franz Josef Sturm unlaps himself. And then Peter Hallstrom battles with him, I think. JC Hay battles with him. Oh, nearly lost his front wing in Jackie Yick's corner.
Definitely don't lose the front wing around here. It will be a very bad time. But in all seriousness, though,
maybe you'd be quicker on the Camel Straight.
You won't survive in the corners without the downforce, so it would not be a fun time once you have to actually drive in the corners, especially with the rear wing. But Cormac has lost touch with Wiswolf, and we mentioned Wiswolf's experience in this series as well. I'm not surprised that he's been able to pull himself into a podium position, be able to build some distance up. Now it's the matter of seeing, can McCormick hold on, or will Jorison get himself closer to drafting distance to be able to take away a spot here down the stretch?
So looking from the roll hoop, the intake in the roll hoop feeds the engine in this car. Unlike the old F3 cars with the side intake, this is a turbocharged engine in this new generation, not the sort of air restrictor in the naturally aspirated 4 cylinders of days of yore. But there are still cars built like that for a couple of other championships. GB3, GB4. JC Hay dropping back, and this is why the light blue car is parked.
Yeah, he's
Where's
just
that?
up. Yeah, that is in Lacombe, in the runoff area, not moving. So obviously something going on with JC Hay situation-wise for him to just stop on the racetrack. At least it's well out of the racing groove. Shouldn't be too many issues for the field. Yeah, just watch this. Didn't crash, didn't make any mistakes. Just goes into the corner and then turns it off and hits the brake.
Meanwhile, Jorison gets ahead of McCormick, so Mike McCormick drops a spot here. Hardest Jorison goes ahead. We cross past the halfway point of this race with John Payne leading 9/10 clear of Catalano. Catalano needs a couple of big sectors to just close it back down again to 6/10, 5/10, pick up the slipstream and try to challenge John Payne. Ragnar Wisloff in his own little no man's land now in 3rd place has pulled away from this battle. Jorison and McCormick. McCormick's not done with the battle though. Side by side we go towards the end of the Camel Straight. McCormick's on the inside. Jorison breaks early around the outside, slots in behind. A bit of time lost by both of them. Ragnar Wisloff clears further ahead. Todd Scholl gets a little bit closer. So do his teammate, Greg Garris, just behind them there in 7th. Leading Barry Hills. And surprise to no one, there's just a tiny bit of inside front tyre smoke descending through Rivage as the drivers trail the brake to try to make the cars turn through that long and downhill corner.
Yeah, for instance, showing some of the speed showcased last race with his ability to just calmly make his way on through. No troubles through the curbing. Looks to be in a good spot with McCormick making mistakes right now. Last time hit the curbing, that run through the corner through 14-15. To be able to check things up now. Still only a few laps to go here, David, and this race has a lot more closer battling, we'll say, compared to race 1 where things separated out significantly. Lots of valuable points on the line to close out the season in the final race of the campaign strong.
John Payne has broken the toe up front. Not like the 7 or 8 seconds that he led by in race 1, but just more than 1 second now over Roberto Catalano. It's 3rd, and it's all forming up in 4th place. McCormick, I don't think is far enough ahead of Gerhardus Jorrison to be safe here on the Kemmel Straight. Todd Scholl and Greg Garris could do a little bit of teamwork and a little bit of team orders here in 6th and 7th. Try to manipulate this to their advantage. Gerhardus Jorrison's teammate Barry Hills off the back and is not quite close enough to interfere. Russ Addy, one of the biggest position gainers in this race, is in 9th, just off the tail of the train on the Kemmel Straight.
It's almost like they're drop locked with the distances right now. That's the tough thing when you're past the 5 car length distance. You just have such a hard time being able to pull yourself ahead and really close in unless you're that much better in the corners. But the closer you get in the corners, the more aero wash you'll get. And the more aero wash you get, the more off tracks you pick up. And the more off tracks you get, the more conservative you then have to approach the racetrack. And then you end up losing time again. So it's a conundrum at this point on you want to gain spots, but you also don't want to destroy the car or pick up a lot of dirt and get some incident points built up.
McCormick kicks the gravel. Gerhardus Jorrison probably has to wipe off his visor after that one. Scholl and Garris still just within touching distance. Fastest lap of this group belongs to Gerhardus Jorrison. Fastest lap of the race belongs to John Payne, a 2:09.8. I've seen plenty of races where John Payne set the fastest lap of the race on the very final lap of the race. So we'll see if he builds up to that with just a couple of laps left in this one. But 3 minding their own business. Mike McCormick looking like maybe he's got just enough pace here.
Well, until he doesn't do stuff like that. That was near disaster. I'm not sure if that's completely on you in terms of the commentator's curse. He just quite simply went too deep into the corner, then missed the apex. Lucky he didn't go across the other side of the sausage curve, and we had a similar situation to what happened in race 1 in that same realm. But it's put him completely vulnerable for a move if Jorgensen is able to set something up next time by and be able to get to the inside. Just wasn't close enough even with the bobble. That did cost a couple car lanes overall for McCormick.
Sure did. And Franz Josef Sturm, more dramas. Big front lock up. That right rear suspension, still cactus, so he goes to turn into the left-hander. Is that... Surely that's the end of lap 1. Hey, that's not the pit entry there, Stummy. Oh, dear. This is why he's the only car running a lap down. JC Hay, we saw parked it and is out of this. Pretty sure that was the end of lap 1 for Franz Josef Sturm. We're running lap 10 at the moment for everyone else. Cormick feeling some pressure, but still staying in 4th place for the moment.
I think he's struggling a little bit. Corner exit, a lot struggling. That car just seems like it will not turn right now. It almost seems like it's mightily tight. Stum, by the way, has already taken the fast repair, as mentioned. Suspension doesn't really do well when it's dragging around like it was. McCormick's almost dragging off corner exit on throttle where it just will not cut, as if he's overheated the front tires or something.
Now it's Gerhardus Jorrison running deep into the bus stop chicane. Around the outside goes Todd Scholl. Mike McCormick let off the hook, and is this Jorrison about to get freight trained by the teammates Scholl in front. Garris 2 car lengths behind, heading into the braking zone at the La Source hairpin. Barry Hills and Russ Addy have gotten a bit closer to this battle as well through all of this. Russ Addy's been quicker than the rest of them on the last few laps, but he's running out of laps now as it's just 2 to go. And 1.5 second lead from Roberto Catalano. Ragnar Wisloff 4 seconds clear of Mike McCormick. Clear of Todd Scholl where this battle goes on. Scholl moves to break the toe. Greg Garris still follows the slipstream of Gerhardus Jorrison towards the end of the Kemmel Straight. And they are sandwiching Jorrison into Lacombe. The chicane, followed by the right-hander, Malmedy. Expect tyre smoke into Rivage.
Will there be any tire smoke? Yes, there will be. Garris locked up the right side tires that time. Jorrison is trying to pace himself. Todd Scholl, I think, right now is getting ready for a draft lock battle for this 5th position at this rate with Jorrison to close out this race. Already a lap and about a third to go. Scholl sees McCormick well out of reach, and that's all from the battling stemming from 5th to close out this race. Payne, by the way, has kept himself within up by 1.4, 1.5 seconds. Seems to be really doing solidly, controlling the pace as some of the drivers go wide.
Yeah, Greg Garris has ended up wide, so Barry Hills has passed him. Russ Addy's got a great opportunity. We're not far away from starting the final lap of the race. Some of these tyres are looking a little overheated. Drivers over pushing the corners, washing out wide. It gets so close towards Blanchimont as Greg Garris slipstreams Barry Hills, but Russ Addy gets the double toe, heading towards the bus stop. Addy will be thinking like a chess player for the final couple of corners on this final lap that they're coming towards. Down the inside, Greg Garris had a dive back at Barry Hills, gets his spot back. Russ Addy needs to think about how to play both of them off against each other. John Payne begins the final lap of the race, 1.1 seconds clear of his main rival today, Roberto Catalano. Wisloff's closed in on the both of them just fractionally. Some of these other gaps opening up. The best battle is between Garris, Hills, and Addy. Here's John Payne, just clear of the slipstream of supporting Roberto Catalano, when we'll look to keep him behind on the final lap.
Dominating day for Payne, has led just about every lap combined here in Spa. It's been a good Spa day for Payne. Now it's the matter of making sure one thing. Doesn't have any off tracks, doesn't go wide, no issues. A bit of battling going on. Russ Addy gaining some time once again. Garris going backwards even more, has fallen back all the way to 9th this lap.
Greg Garris got mugged. Barry Hills made a great move on the Kemmel Straight. Russ Addy followed him through, and now Greg Garris follows him out into the gravel on the final lap. Wolf Olsen gets a little bit closer. He maybe smells a bit of an opportunity if that was far enough out that Garris has a slowdown penalty or any damage or any such like. So final lap and some positions changing to the advantage of Barry Hills and Russ Addy. Certainly not done yet with the slipstream and a big braking zone into the bus stop and La Source still to come. John Payne's let Roberto Catalano get just a little bit closer on this final lap. Not really too close to apply any pressure. 2 braking zones, big one at the bus stop for John Payne. Up the hill over the little bump there. Deliberately letting Catalano get a little bit closer is my sense here as we approach La Source. The checkered flag will be out of La Source, heading down towards Eau Rouge. John Payne slightly covers the inside here. Now powers out towards the checkered flag. Will he make it a clean sweep of Circuit Spa-Francorchamps in his title season? You bet he will. It's 2 races, 2 wins for champion John Payne.
Dominant day, dominant race. What else can you say? Very happy driver here after a stellar drive by Payne.
Barry Hill stayed ahead of Russ Addy. Greg Garris just fended off Ulf Olsen. Eugene Clark and Peter Holstrom still to take the checkered flag. Pierre Bennett and Jan-Erik Skrefsrud will be the last cars on the lead lap. Franz Josef Sturm, a lap down, has already taken the checkered flag, and JC Hay retired on lap 8. It's lap 10 of 12 when John Payne took the fastest lap of the race, so the tyres did maybe seem at this high speed, high lateral load track to just give up a little bit in the final couple of laps, as John Payne also just backed it up a little bit towards Roberto Catalano and Ragnar Wisloff, who joined him on the podium. Mike McCormick, Todd Scholl, Gerhardus Jorrison, Greg Garris, Barry Hills, Russ Addy, and Ulf Olsen as the top 10 at the drop of the checkered flag. Mike Grandy, Eugene Clark, Peter Holstrom, Pierre Bennett, and Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, the last drivers on the lead lap. Sturm 1 lap down, JC Hay a 5 lap down. Retirement with problems or something calling his name took him out of this race. We got to give all credit to the season that John Payne has had, wrapping up this championship even before the final round and still coming along to clean sweep Spa. It's John Payne's moment.
It's indeed an opportunity to celebrate the championship. Heard some of his words earlier today, but now gets to add an extra win to that category. What a run for John Payne.
I'm here.
Ayol.
So the champion, John Payne, is with Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. John, first things first, congratulations once again on the championship. You get the full sweep here in Spa. How would you describe that second race with Roberto?
He kept the pressure on. You just want to stay out of that 0.7 range, and I pulled it up to like 1.3, and then I'd have a bobble, and next thing you know, he was back. He didn't put a foot wrong that whole race. Yeah, but it was good to do. It was good to race somebody the whole race, and it was fun.
Overall, how would you describe the season with the ups and flows, a part of this campaign to get that separation, to get the championship?
I've said before, I'm not the best under pressure. So that's what makes me quick. I just want to get away from everybody. And so the, getting out front and getting that gap for me is so critical. I need to work on that, but I had a pretty healthy lead most of the way, so it wasn't too stressful. I think Ragnar got me a couple times, maybe somebody else, but I was running for the championship, so I had to be a little safer sometimes. But it's crazy how some people are just real quick at certain tracks. The people pop up to the top and they're fast there, and it's interesting.
So now that you have a championship, what's your approach going to be for next season? Try and defend this championship.
Don't hold me to it. I don't think I'm going to go as hard next year. I practiced a lot. I'm just not naturally quick. I worked on it. I watched a lot of videos, and I think the most important thing is finding your line and where you can shave tenths here and there off. I worked hard to get up toward the front. I don't want to put that much time into it next season. So we'll see. Oh, and I'm doing a lot of traveling, so I don't think I'll be running for the championship the next one. So I don't think I'll be able to defend it, but I hear Greg Sainz is coming back in the fall. That ought to be interesting.
That definitely should make things interesting. Where are you traveling to, if you don't mind me asking?
Going to Ireland and Scotland. And New Orleans. That's what we're doing this summer.
3 different places. Wow. Well, let you get to planning for those trips and planning for how you're going to run next campaign. Congratulations on the run. Anyone you want to give a shout out to that you didn't do earlier today?
Oh, no, just everybody. Roberto is fast. Everybody in the whole league is so usually so gentlemanly. It's a good group of folks, and I enjoy running with them.
Congrats, John, on the title.
Thanks, Justin.
Don't forget your trip to the trophy shop.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I almost forgot about that. David, back to you.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks, the champion, for joining us. Second on the podium is also going to join us. Roberto Catalano.
Yes. My English is very bad, I tell you, but I try.
No worries, all good. Much closer this time.
Yes, it's close. I try to stay near John, but it's difficult to do it. He's very, very fast, but there are one point where I can gain about you. And in this point I do my race. At the end, only 1 second, but I think that you slow to conserve the first position.
Anything you want to say in Italian?
In italiano posso dire qualunque cosa, però non so chi capisce o non capisce. È stata una bellissima gara, mi sono divertito, peccato per la prima gara che non è andata come avrei voluto. Nella seconda gara mi sono divertito, sono stato molto vicino a John, però lui è di un'altra categoria. Sono contentissimo di aver fatto la pole, ci sono riuscito sicuramente perché lui ha fatto un errore, perché non si spiega altrimenti, però è veramente molto molto divertente, e se c'è qualcuno che ci ascolta e può e vuole partecipare, glielo consiglio fortemente.
You have lots
don't ask me to translate in English.
No worries. You have lots of friends and teammates that cheer you on, like Giorgio Anaboldi says, "Go Roberto."
Yes. I pay them to write on YouTube. I pay them, and they are correct.
In euros or in lira?
No, euros. Lira, it's no more. Euros, only euros.
Well, congratulations, and
thank you.
Best of luck for your team and next season.
Thank you.
Justin, that leaves us one person left on the podium. It's Johnny Come Lately, Ragnar Wisloff.
Yes, indeed. Ragnar Wisloff finishing off the season with the podium. How would you describe that race that you just had to be able to fight for the podium?
It was good. I was did the first 4 or 5 laps. Very good racing with Todd and with Mike McCormick, and that was fun. And after that, it was a bit lonely, I guess. The guys in front, they're so quick. There's no way you can catch them. So many, what is it? 19 turns in this and 2 minutes. So many places to lose, half a tenth, and then suddenly these guys are just gone. And I haven't done the practice, and I don't have the consistency to stay with them. So that P3 was the best I could hope for.
Overall, how would you describe this season for you in the 30 cam with the back and forth you had at times with John Payne?
Well, it's obvious, John Payne has done a fantastic job this season. he must win. I don't think there's anyone close to him. So congrats to John for the championship, and I think it's very good to see Roberto being so quick as well. We need a little bit of new blood, even though we are old. We still need new blood, and Roberto has turned out to be a fresh breath from southern Europe, and that's very good to see. And we have all these other guys who are quick as well. So it's been a good season as always. I think I need to say also, I find this car to have a performance ceiling which is very high. It's very difficult to drive this car on the limit consistently for half an hour like we do. We're old guys, it's difficult to do that. So maybe the racing would have been closer if we had a car which was slightly easier to drive.
So with that being said, where do you look to improve upon to be able to add to your legacy in the series next campaign with this car? Where do you feel you can find that little extra bit to be able to try and get more titles?
It's just, it's like in all different sports. It's, the little details. You need to just keep searching for that extra little thing, like here in Pujon, you just need to be sure that you know exactly how far out you can go between the two apices. In turn 14 as well, how far out into the gravel can you go? So it's searching for all of that, and that just takes a lot of time. You just need to have enough time to be able to practice, to get that lap time, and to be consistent with the very quick lap times. That's what you need to do. I know what I need to do. I just don't have the time. There's so many other things to do as well.
Anyone you want to give a shout out to for your finish here today?
Well, again, congrats to John. I don't know who was second. Was it Roberto second?
Roberto was second in race 2.
Yeah, okay, so congrats to them, and thanks to John Morgan, who organizes this series so well. Does all of the setup of the races, does all of the scoring, and puts everything so well together. We can just show up and have fun, and we're much indebted to John for that. Thank you, John.
Congratulations.
And thank you guys for doing a good service to us. This is very good promo for the league. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Once again, thank you very much for the time. Congrats to the podium here today.
Thank you.
Ragnar Wislav rounds out the podium here, David, after some phenomenal racing this season.
John Payne wins both races. John Payne wins the championship, something he's been working towards. And he told us how he's been working towards it here in 60 Plus Racing Adventures, the Super Formula League. This is one of the divisions of 60 Plus Racing Adventures that has the longest history, past 20 seasons now. And John Payne, maybe he'll etch his name on a trophy, but he certainly puts his name in a bit of history in 60 Plus Racing Adventures and its long history. Great racing here from Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. David Haynes with Justin Prince and Ramiro to bring you the coverage. It's been our delight. Make sure you're following RaceSpotTV so you don't miss any more 60 Plus Racing Adventures or the other iRacing series and coverage that we produce. Until next time, we'll see you around.